Left Alaman and then no side dough. Left Alaman with the ring. I was a young troubadour. Swing, promenade. I'll be an old troubadour when I'm gone. So another Square Dance Callers Talk, and tonight I've got a special, if you want to call it a special. This is for the Callerlab and Callerlab Convention. Tonight we're going to talk all about Callerlab. I have two very high-ranking members of Callerlab with me tonight, possibly the two highest in the Callerlab situation right now. I have Teresa Berger. How are you, ma'am?
I'm great. Thanks, Charlie.
And Ted Lizotte. How are you, sir?
Doing well, sir. Doing well.
It's a pleasure to see both of y'all. We talked about this a little while ago, and what I wanted to do is obviously we're all members of and big fans of Callerlab, and so I wanted to talk about that because I've got a lot of friends, and I'm sure y'all do too, that if you haven't talked to, don't know about the Callerlab Convention and what Callerlab does for callers. So we're going to kind of get into that tonight. We'll talk about Square Dance calling too, but this is all about Callerlab. So we'll start off. Teresa, what are you doing Callerlab? What do you hold right now?
Sure. So I currently serve as the executive director of Callerlab. So I operate the home office.
Okay. And Ted, what about you, buddy?
I am currently the chairman, elected by, first elected to the board, and then the board elects the chairman out of the 20-ish people that are there, depending upon which year you're talking about. But yeah, so I'm there. I took over in April, and I'll be there through 2025.
Wow. Okay. So we'll start off with this. Teresa, tell me about Callerlab, the history. And you don't have to go into it's a long history. I get that, but tell me about Callerlab.
Sure. Hey, I'm going to defer to Ted here a little bit. We'll make him talk since he's
Okay.
important, the chairman of the board. Tell us a little bit about Callerlab, Ted.
That hurts. I knew she was going to do this, and I should have seen it coming. All right, I'll go back and give you a little bit of the history. You can take a look at some things. If you go to any caller school, they're going to start talking about as far as it came up from quadrilles and different things of that nature. One of the bigger things that happened prior to the formation of Callerlab was the Sets in Order magazine put together by Bob Osgood. And I was going to say I've got a couple things here for you, just as you can take a look. If you have not looked at or read, you may want to think about this is Bob Osgood's book as I saw it, with the Sets in Order, and he talks a lot about the history. It's a pretty thick read, so you may want to take a look at that. There's another one here that I've been trolling through a little bit since he's passed. This is Jim Mayo's Step by Step through modern Western square dancing. He pulls a lot from Bob Osgood's book and talks a lot about different things with him, but there's a lot of history there. But once that happened, about in 1971 or so, Bob Osgood got together with about 11 other members of the square dance community, people that he had put into his Square Dance Hall of Fame for Sets of Order. And they started to form Callerlab. Their initial goals included putting the dance back into square dancing. It had started to be basically a learning event every night, trying to establish some type of standardization of the calls, as well as to provide some better training for the callers that were at the time starting to get on the scene and seeing what was going on. So at that point in time, they had about 25 members or so once they formed, I guess. And I'm guessing here, don't hold me accountable for anything, because you know what I mean, you can't edit these, so you never know. But anyways, they founded Callerlab, and that became an invite only when it first started. So they would reach out and bring somebody else into the fold, and then it started to move along from that. At this point in time, the Board of Governors currently has 22 members on it. I believe we'll be down to 21 come the next convention. We have yearly meetings for the Board of Governors. We have yearly meetings for the members, and that happens at convention as well. We have different things in place like professional standards, a code of ethics. We have incorporation status. We're nonprofit, trying to do what we can. And we work mostly via committee. So the members have a real say into what's going on, which has its pluses and minuses. I'll give you that. But overall, we try to work together as a team to figure out what we can do. And then I'm going to transfer over to, that's kind of the past and where we got to where we are. But, you know, Teresa's been more involved in the daily stuff. So let me pass the football back that way.
All right, Teresa.
Sure, yeah. Thanks, Ted, for that good history. I think kind of it's helpful to look at where we came from to see where we are today. So our mission today is to foster the art of square dance calling and improve caller skills. So that's our mission statement. We fulfill that mission by providing guidance, education, certifying caller coaches, maintaining the standardized list of calls and definitions, and generally promoting the square dance activity. And so that essentially sounds pretty similar, right, to those three goals that Ted talked about when we started, right? Putting the dance and square dancing, establishing standardization for the calls, and providing caller training, essentially. And so that really feels a lot the same. Our mission continues to be to serve the square dance activity, and that hasn't changed, and we don't really see that changing, right? What we do looks a little bit different now than it did back in the 70s. Ted talked about, you know, the Board of Governors. Essentially, we're a membership association, right? And so we've got over 1,000 members worldwide. And our members are the ones who are making the decisions. They're voting on the resolutions that change pieces of our organization. And they elect that Board of Governors. Right now, Ted mentioned 22 members. The board really serves as kind of a high level providing policies and implementing direction from the members. When the members create those resolutions, the board provides feedback, board helps implement those things, and really big picture planning for the organization that we have, and then also for the square dance activity. And then, of course, the board elects the executive committee, and that's 5 folks who serve on more day-to-day governance in implementing those board decisions that they make. And they meet twice a year. Of course, Ted serves as the chairman of the executive committee as well. And it's got a vice chair and then 3 additional members. And they meet, again, working more on the day-to-day. And then obviously with the home office, we help implement everything that happens, keeping the website up to date, keeping our membership informed, and doing all of the paperwork and behind the scenes things. Some of the other things that Callerlab does, we talked a lot about this kind of mission to standardize the activity, and that's a big piece of why we exist. And so our committee structure allows those updates to happen when there's changes to lists or definitions. That all happens through Callerlab and through the committee system. You know, and that standardization is important because, you know, now we can dance anywhere, right? In Indiana, in Georgia, in New Hampshire, in Texas, where our convention's going to be, and even for our friends overseas, right? In Germany and Japan, square dancing all looks the same. And that's thanks to the work of our members throughout the years, standardizing the activity. Some of the other things that we do include licensing and insurance, helping to protect our members and making sure that they're covered when they're playing music. Again, that's in the US, but that's for BMI and ASCAP music licensing, and then general liability insurance. Education continues to be a key piece of what we do at Callerlab as well. There are a ton of caller resources available online, both to our members and to the general dancing public, because that's a big part of our mission, right? To foster the art of square dance calling. If you haven't been out to the knowledge base, a great collection of resources are out there. The teaching resource, of course, accrediting caller coaches, so our accredited caller coach program is an important thing that we administer. And so Ted's one of our caller coaches as well, but they work to help train new callers. And so that's definitely important for the lifeblood of our activity. And one of the newest programs that we've got that's put out in the latest news blast was our starter kit for new callers. That's been revamped by our caller training committee. So if you haven't checked that out, go out on the website under caller resources. You can find that there. It's a toolkit for folks who are getting started, and just really kind of an A to Z where to start document. So a great resource. Last thing I'll mention in this segment is our foundation is a 501c3 organization that supports the funding of projects to preserve and promote square dancing. And so these projects are helping protect the activity, contribute to its growth. We're focusing on those social, physical, mental benefits of square dancing, and essentially looking to see the future. And so we're doing that through scholarships for callers, going to caller school, through grants, through marketing, all kinds of different projects to help preserve and promote square dancing.
I was going to say earlier, I call or text you about once every 2 or 3 weeks about the knowledge base. And I'm like, I'm trying to find a one night party. And you're like, and you'll send me 3 links in about 8 seconds. So I get a lot of use out of that because I do a lot online looking for things like that. I think we covered. I mean, I was going to ask what the purpose of it was. I think you covered that quite well.
Hey, Charlie.
So obviously, you didn't get to where you are. Yes, sir.
Can I just add one thing because it came
Absolutely.
to mind as she was going by, and we mentioned the members of the board, but sometimes there's a little bit of misunderstanding. I want everybody to make sure that they understand that the people who run for the board, this is a volunteer. They are volunteering to be on the board. They pay their way to convention. They pay their way to go attend a convention. They don't get a free ride. So these people that have been there for, 15 years and whatever, they are committing to not only responding to emails and potentially Zoom meetings now throughout the year. They pay and they give of their time freely for the activity and for the organization. So I don't want anybody to think that these guys are getting anything. It's truly a labor of love. So I just want to make sure that while that was passing by, in case that question doesn't come up,
I understand.
that I covered it. All right, sorry. Thank you.
No, that's a good point to make. It absolutely is. Teresa, you didn't start out being the head of Callerlab. So tell me about when you first joined Callerlab. What made that decision?
Yeah, so I started calling in 2010 with my brother, and we attended caller school that next summer. And we actually attended there in Topeka, Kansas, at the Heart of America Caller School at the time. And that was kind of next door to the home office. And so that was my introduction to Callerlab, was through the home office physical location there, being on site, and then getting to learn from Callerlab accredited caller coaches. So that was kind of my first introduction, and then joined Callerlab again in 2011 right away. And then had my opportunity to attend the Callerlab Convention in 2012. So that next year, so pretty soon after we had started calling, was kind of jumped in right away to get involved.
So 2012 was your first convention?
It was. Yeah, it was held in Nashville, Tennessee. It ended up being over spring break. So we were both still in school at that point. And so it was a spring break trip, right? How much more exciting is it to go to Callerlab on your spring break?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's a movie or anything, but yeah, okay.
So it was really cool though. We had a really incredible experience, right? I mean, anybody's first convention, you feel like feelings of overwhelmed, like you're overwhelmed, right? There's a lot that's there. You're meeting a lot of people, you're seeing folks that you've maybe only seen on stage before or on the record, right? And so like getting to meet those people was really cool. For us as like kids, we're like, what? This is amazing. And got to connect with folks who we had met with at conventions before, met at caller school, friends we had met around the country. And that was kind of a cool year when we were in Nashville, right? That was our first time in Nashville. So it was a fun city to visit anyway. And so the convention did a great job of pulling in a lot of like just fun, memorable experiences in the program as well. So that made it really interesting.
Ted, what about you, buddy? When did you join? What's your first convention?
Oh, wow. I remember I'm older than Teresa, so I don't have a memory that's quite as sharp. I joined in 91, but I was an associate member for a number of years. Back in those days, you needed to attend a full convention in order to go. And as I mentioned in one of my From the Chair videos, I actually was able to attend in 97, I think it was, or something like that. That was the Portland, Maine mini lab that they had. So I went to that, and then that allowed me to become a full member, but I still hadn't been to a convention. I was lucky enough in my association, my local association, to have Jim Mayo, who was, first chairman of Callerlab, plus, Don Beck was there, Clark Baker, a lot of big fixtures in the organization that were just in the neighborhood. They just seemed like regular people to me. I didn't know that they were big mucky mucks inside of Callerlab. They just were always there running the local stuff. So, but they were very influential to get me to go. But my first one I actually managed to go to was Vegas, because it's Vegas, baby. It was 2000. And so I got there for my first time, but I'd say the same thing as Teresa. That first time you show up, and you have, you're looking around at the time, all these people that were on records or that you've listened to and that you've seen. So I just kind of sat in the back a little bit in awe of what was going on. I think by the time usually you hit a convention, you're pretty involved with what's going on. And so then you make that commitment to go. By that point, you're starting to get names. You may not know exactly who they are, but you're starting to hear things. And so be able to put those faces and shake some hands was really kind of cool.
Yeah, I forget what year it was. Do you know what New Mexico, what year that was, Albuquerque?
I was 18.
Yeah.
Was it 18? So that would have been my first. I went to the 2018 in Albuquerque, and same thing. I'd met Elmer Sheffield at a Georgia convention a couple of years prior, and I mean that's about as big a name as you're going to get most of the time. And but nobody else, because I was just local around here. And when I went, I can just remember of all the people, I'd started buying a few things from Scott Bennett. I'd heard this Scott Bennett. He's got these record labels out, and he was sitting at a table, and I was like, "Wow, you're Scott Bennett." And he was like, "Yeah, man." And I was like, "I think I got two of your record or 2 of your recordings or whatever." And I was just blown away. And I'll tell you, and now that I've been going to them more frequently and I get to know everybody, the after parties, when I would see people sitting at a bar or at a table in the lobby of the hotel or whatever, I would just like, man, it'd be so awesome to be able to sit at that table and talk to those, because it's like you said, I'm looking at Def Leppard sitting at the table over there.
Yeah.
And I can't just walk over and sit down, which I could have, but I didn't. I just thought, wait a minute, I'm the guy that has no record contract. I can't just go sit with those guys. That's Metallica sitting at the table. So, but that term, once you get to know everybody, it changes, and it is a welcoming group of people, and they're just a lot of fun. So, on that note, I know Callerlab does a lot for callers with the knowledge base and with insurance and everything else. What is the Callerlab Convention? That's for both of you, whichever one wants it.
Did I want that one? I think she's looking. She's not talking. And
Okay.
if she pauses, that usually means it's up to me. When we do these things at convention, Charlie, and I get up on the podium and it's time for me to talk, she has everything scripted down to, like laugh here, sneeze at this point. It's like scripted. I have to follow it or I'm going to hear about it. So let me see. So what am I talking about here? What is a Callerlab Convention?
What is the Callerlab Convention in your eyes?
In my eyes, for me, because I'm a member of the board, I've got a meeting prior before it starts and after it starts, after it finishes. So it's getting in a day early. It's make sure everybody's good to go, getting ready for the meeting, trying to get in the right mindset. But generally speaking, for everybody else, the convention is just, you show up, it's 3 days, you've got everything's going on, right? You've got the seminars, you've got the panels, you got the banquets, you got the awards, everything there that's happening. And it's a really good time to, if nothing else, to get to network. And this activity, I've said it, I don't know how many times, and I'll continue to say it, you're an entrepreneur. Like you said, you work alone over there, and the time to get there and just to talk to somebody else face to face about what you're dealing with, or whether it's choreographically or with your dancers or whatever it may be, you've got that chance to talk to somebody who understands what you're going through. It is huge. It's really nice to be able to do that. It means a lot.
Anything, Teresa? No?
Yeah, no, I think
That covered?
the term professional development for me is the big, like, this is our professional development, our opportunity to like share ideas, get ideas, and hear from what's working for folks and build that network that we have.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize when I first decided to go, my wife and I, when we decided to go, one, it was because it was in New Mexico and we'd never been. So the location is a draw sometimes. And being in the line of work that I am in the real world, I'd never been to like conventions, business type things. You know what I mean? So I didn't know what it entailed. And so with the sessions and all that, and we'll get into that in a few minutes, but you learn a lot from it, and the networking, getting to meet people. But at what point in my career, now I started probably about 5 years in of calling my own dances, probably 5 or 6 a year at the time. I joined Callerlab and then started with the conventions. At what point is there a particular time I should join Callerlab?
Well,
That's a great
join it.
question. So
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, so I mean, at the point that you are playing copyrighted music, you need a license, right? And so then that's something that your membership provides. First and foremost is that license piece. And then anytime that you're actively calling, you're going to want the resources and the news and the communication that the home office provides to all of our members. So, when you're in that kind of learning stage, maybe you're working with a mentor, maybe it doesn't make sense for you to join Callerlab yet, but at the point that you really get out there and you're teaching, you're calling a dance on your own, you're calling tips on your own, like that's the point you really want to be a member so that you have the licensing, you have the insurance, so you're covered, and then you have the support from the home office and from the communication you're getting to make sure that you're up to date on the programs and all of the updates that are happening.
I agree. Absolutely. So obviously callers and their partners, spouses go to the Callerlab conventions. Who else is it open to, or does anybody go? What about that? I think you addressed that on your thing earlier, Ted. So
I
you
did.
tell
Now,
me about it.
you're hoping I can remember. I mean,
Yeah.
it was callers and partners are the big two that obviously show up, but we have different representatives from different organizations, ContraLab, RounderLab, and such. We also have representatives from the National Executive Committee, from the different conventions that go around, dance leaders, pretty much, and up all the way through to dancers, local people that happen to be in the area and want to see what's happening. Yeah, and if you've been to a school, I don't know about down there, but we have a big school up here that Ken Ritucci runs, and we have dancers that go, in theory, to be checkers to try to help the students to get pushed around. But some of them come over and talk to me. It's like, I just want to listen to what you guys talk about and what it is you're doing, because they're just inquisitive, and they could be future callers, right? Like 4 or 5 years down the road, maybe they get hooked on hearing something that's going on that's more in depth than what they were getting. So we open it to everybody, really, anybody who would like to.
Sounds good. So there's a fee attached. What is the fee just to go to Callerlab?
Yeah, so
You're gonna make her look that up. All right, go for it.
You're gonna make me look it up. I should have it memorized by now, right? So there is a fee, and it is different for callers versus dancers, because we know that our primary market is the square dance caller, but we know that there's value for members, for non-callers as well. So the fee right now for the callers to attend is $310, and any non-callers, so partners or dancers, is going to be $280. And so that's going to include all of the convention events. Like once you get there, the only thing it doesn't include is that if you want to attend the pre-con event, which is a community dance seminar on Saturday and Sunday. But starting at 5 p.m. on Sunday, everything is covered with that convention fee. So it starts off with a welcome reception on Sunday evening at 5 p.m. And that's just a great networking time. We provide appetizers and just open space for folks to kind of get to know each other. Oftentimes we'll highlight who the first time attendees are so they can, folks can go up and introduce themselves. And then following that, there's a little break and we move into the Sunday evening dance. That's a fundraising dance for our foundation. So the admission is just a donation to the foundation. That's actually open to the public. So local dancers will advertise and let them know that they can come join and hang out with us Sunday evening for that Ways and Means fundraising dance for the foundation on Sunday. And then our main program starts Monday morning. Again, all of this is included for that fee. So we've got our opening session starting Monday morning, and then we break out into all of our interest sessions, our committee meetings. We have 4 meals that are included within that fee. So Monday and Tuesday, lunch and dinner are all included. And then as well as like beverage breaks, coffee and tea and lemonade in between the sessions. The dancing on Monday and Tuesday night is also included, and that's only for convention attendees. So that's, something you're getting 2 dances at least as part of your convention fee. That's Monday and Tuesday night. New this year, the executive committee actually approved for the convention recordings to be made available complimentary as part of your convention package. So that's another great incentive. And so all of the interest sessions, those are those topic specific sessions that they're an hour and 15 minutes that last. There's 30 of them throughout the event on different topics on choreography or marketing or club relations or anything that may be of interest to square dance callers and their partners and the dancers that attend. All of those are recorded, and then those recordings are made available. This year will be to all of the attendees, and then they're available for sale as well for folks who couldn't join us. So that's a great incentive for folks who are coming, that obviously you can't attend all 30 sessions because they're overlapping throughout the event, but you can go home and listen to those or listen to your favorite ones again over and over just for fun after the convention is over.
Charlie, I think a better question would have been to ask her what's not included with the convention. And just in case anybody's curious, that would be the alcohol after the convention. That's what's not included. You're on your own as far as that goes, if that's what you prefer to do, to be there. And she mentioned it in passing, but she mentioned that the recordings are included. It's one of the things the executive committee is offering a complimentary, if you will, or it's included within your price to be there. And if you've never actually taken the time to listen to the recordings, I have some still that are on cassette that I had to buy back in the 90s or the early 2000s when I went, and I don't know, I wore those out in the car listening to these things over and over again. But if you'll get these, they're digital. You put them on a thumb drive, you put them in your car, and you just listen to them all. And I can't tell you how many times I'm driving to dances long, it got 2-3 hours to go, and I'll pop in one that I haven't listened to in a while, and there's some choreography in there that you're like, I used to know that, I used to do that, or something about showmanship. It's incredible that the amount of information you have from such a wide variety of people. So we thought it was very important that some people might be not listening to them or avoiding it for whatever reason, for the cost, and we're like, well, if you go, you get it. So hopefully it'll get a lot of use. It's really important.
Well, I'll absolutely do it. Like we've talked before. I've started going back and I'm watching all the Corona stuff you did on GSI, all those videos, and there's just so much there. And I've listened to some of the recordings that are on YouTube. A lot of them have been uploaded. The really older ones, the recordings from the Callerlab conventions, they're on YouTube. I listen to those. Before we get into what's to do outside of it, Teresa, if you want, tell me about some of the sessions and stuff that we have coming up this year, if you want to let it out. I know it's not public yet, but do you want to talk about the sessions?
Sure. So I won't tell you specifically what they are. I will tell you the executive committee has done a great job of doing some unique things that you haven't seen before. And so they kind of break it out into categories, right? They have sessions that are obviously choreography based, right? And so each of the programs is going to have its own session this year that will kind of dive in to that program. So watch out for those. There's also some new sessions on technology. Obviously, an important piece of any caller's journey is to learn how to use some of the technology that's out there. And so there's going to be some different sessions that are highlighting some of the different programs that are out there for folks to utilize. And so we're going to do some demos. We're going to have, again, the Square View Genius Bar, but it's going to be a Tech Genius Bar. And so it's going to highlight, obviously, the Square View program, but some of the other programs that exist that provide a service for callers and help them as they're calling in, learning and, preparing. So that's some of the things that are coming up. Ted, I don't know if you want to give them an exclusive on our big session that's happening in our general session, our keynote.
Oh, I don't know. I was going to hold it till later, but yeah, I suppose this is coming out in direction, but we thought, okay, we're on this podcast and Charlie needs a scoop, right?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
Charlie needs a scoop. So, he already knows, but we've talked to him. One of the big highlights is usually, again, during the general session, we have a keynote speaker that comes in. Sometimes it's from outside, but it's really hard to get somebody to understand what it is that we do and trying to figure out who we talk to. So we've got, and this person should be on your list, as I was telling you earlier, you're getting a new person. We've asked Tim Crawford to come back and give us a keynote speech, and he has agreed to that. Tim just won a huge honorary insurance. He works in insurance for his real work, and he just won a huge honorary degree that I just saw on Facebook earlier today. It's crazy. He was the chairman back in 2004 and 6. He's called around the globe. He's a friend of mine, going back to work with him and overseas, worked with him in the States. Not only is he very knowledgeable, but he's funny and very funny. So I think if you put him on a podcast, you're going to really enjoy him. And he's literally looking forward to getting back to a convention. And he was very gracious in accepting it. We can't wait to hear from him.
Outstanding. I appreciate that, and I will absolutely touch base with him and get him on. I'd love to have him on the podcast. My wife, on a side note, my wife asked me a couple of days ago when we were talking about the podcast. She said, "Aren't you going to run out at some point?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I could run out. I mean, there's a lot out there. There's 1,000 members just in Callerlab. It'd take me a long time to get through that list." But I said, I can go back and repeat a few. But so Tim Crawford, I would absolutely love to talk to him also. We already talked about your first and all that, but Teresa, what's a memory that jumps out to you as one of your more memorable Callerlab moments, if any?
Sure. So I think it's hard to compete with the first convention memory, right? Like that's ingrained, I think, forever of an experience I had. I think that my second convention is a pretty close second, though. So my second convention wasn't until 2018. So my first was in 2012, and then I came back in 2018. I had a gap there while I, did life, right? I graduated high school. I went to college. I graduated. I got my first real job.
Jesus, Ted, she's talking about high school. It was just
I know.
long ago.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Moving past that. So, kind of entering the work field as a young working professional, kind of still square dance calling and teaching when I had the time. And as I kind of figured out life and I got more involved in the square dance activity and started traveling some more, it had been on my radar, right? Like I would love to be able to go to another Callerlab convention. And, obviously for several years that didn't happen. But in 2018, I had gone through all of my PTO in January. I went through and I looked at my entire year of like, how much time off do I have? And I planned out all the days. And I was like, I have 3 left. I'm going to Callerlab. And I was like last minute. I did the flights over my lunch hour one day and I called my mom and I was like, I'm going to Albuquerque. She's like, great, have fun. So, kind of just planned it. The home office was great about helping me kind of figure out what I needed to do. And so I, kind of planned that trip, and I was so nervous, right? Because I was flying across country and I was like, okay, is it going to be what I remember? Right. I went with my parents before. This is going to be a totally different experience. But as I was like in my career, I was starting to attend professional development conferences for the field that I was in. And I was having a blast at that, right? Like learning about the industry I worked in, networking with other folks who were working in the same industry. And I was like, this is cool for my job. And I was envisioning like, this would be even cooler for something that I'm really passionate about. And so I prioritized like, let me make it happen. And so I, went and I had another great experience, right? Folks were super welcoming. And so I hope that that's the case for everybody, right? Because it was for me that there were some folks I knew who I'd grown up with in the activity. But I was able to meet a lot of folks. I got to sit in on the board meeting. I don't know if you know that any member can sit in on the board meetings that happen. And so for me, I wanted to kind of see what was going on and I wanted to hear about the conversations that were happening. And I wanted a seat at the table to see what was happening. I wanted to be an active and an engaged participant. And so that was something for me that I was so glad I could make work. And that kind of set me on the path to like really jump in and be involved. But, it's no small thing, right? And so I think that was the memorable piece for me was like making that like, okay, I know that this is something I want to do. And I know that it's going to cost, right? I'm going to have to budget for it. I'm going to have to budget my time, my money, figure out how I can make it happen. And for a lot of folks, that's not the case every year, but when it does work out, and you can make it happen and everything kind of lines up, it's totally worth it. And so like, I feel like that second convention for me was where I really felt like I had a seat at the table and I had something to contribute to the activity and the organization.
Very nice. Ted, your memories?
Wow. I don't know if I can compete with that. Let me see. I mean, I'll go with, you never get over your first. It was a double whammy for me. So besides being there, it was my first time to Vegas. So I remember, walking up and down the strip by myself because I'm like, I don't know if I'll ever get back here again. So we did that. But I suppose the other big memories, I think if I had to pick them, I went my first one, and again that was 2000. 2001, I was asked to make my first presentation. Clark Baker approached me and he was like, "Hey, do you want to talk about the alternative music back before the laptops were really being used and we're still on records?" I was using not weird records, but I was using pop records. So I have shares, Do You Believe, on vinyl. I had a lot of that kind of stuff. I would go to the 45 store and buy actual, AC/DC on vinyl that I could get, a 45s, and I would use those to call to. So I brought all of those, and I was on a panel with John Sobalski and Jerry Justin. And so I was, at the time, I'm just like, you got to be kidding. Why am I standing next to these guys? This is my second convention. And Sobalski wrote a book. So I'm like, this is ridiculous. But it was humbling experience, but also it was a lot of fun as I look back at it. I had a lot of accolades about the calling that was going on at the time. The other big ones I did, I was extremely humbled at I got my 25th award in Cary, or was it Cary? It was in 13, so it was Cary, North Carolina, I want to say. So that was it was an emotional experience for me at the time. So I got that. I never thought I would be there for 25 years, much less sitting, where I am now or doing anything like that. But those were probably two of the bigger ones. Other than when I took the gavel this past year, that's a little memorable.
Sure.
Yeah. So things like that. But there's a lot of memories at all of these conventions. I can remember Tony getting his milestone. Things like that. It's just there's a lot of things that come to mind.
Well, since I've only got a handful, 5 or 6 under my belt now, I think the dancing, the dances for the callers and the partners and spouses at night. The first one we went to in New Mexico, and I don't know if it was record labels or whatever the setup was for who was calling each dance. My wife and I, the level of dance is the level of dance calling is amazing because you've got extremely good callers up there, and the dancing. You don't have the breakdown on a spin the top on most of those squares at the Callerlab Convention. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but the dancing level is so high, and I was just like, wow, why have we not come to these before? My wife was like, well, because you weren't a member. So I was like, okay, well, we're going to start doing this. The other is the draws. We went to Virginia. We were in Virginia and loved going there. So we use it for that. And I know some people wonder why, because I think you might even mention it, Ted, on the email that went out, was why do we don't have it in the same spot every year or something to that effect. I appreciate that it's not, because you bounce it around to make it closer. Because as much as I despise flying, at some point when it comes back to the East Coast, I'll drive. But I'm flying to Grapevine this year, so I'm looking forward to that. And you see that segue? That's what a professional does.
That's nice.
So
nice, Markley. Nice.
It was pure luck. I didn't even see that coming. That was the corner that just walked around from the side. So,
yeah.
Teresa, this year we're in Grapevine, Texas. Tell me about Grapevine, Texas.
Sure. So they say everything's bigger in Texas. Yes.
Yes.
I guess we'll find out, right? That's the theme of our convention. The 49th convention is going to be held March 24th through the 27th, 2024. We're right there at the DFW International Airport at the Hyatt Regency Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Really nice property. We were there this spring, checking it out and kind of getting our plans ready. Super convenient. If you're flying in, you just fly right into DFW and then the shuttle will take you to the front door. And if you're driving, you enter in the airport parking, you get your ticket and they'll validate your parking. So really convenient either way. Just the DFW airport there is just obviously between Dallas, Fort Worth, and just north of that airport is a little town called Grapevine. And so that's kind of our host. They're a kind of a mix of a small town. It's got that small town Texas charm with some urban style. It's a fun city. They've got a nice main street that has a pretty vibrant collection of food and entertainment. If you're interested in like wine tasting or visiting breweries, there's a great collection there. Activities, all kinds of things to do. And there's even a vintage railroad. So kind of a cool thing you can see if you're coming in early. Great things to check out right there. You can take the visitor shuttle that picks you up right outside our hotel and will take you to Grapevine Main Street and the Main Street Historic District. Or you can take the Tex Rail, which is the commuter rail that can take you different places in the area if you're interested as well. As far as the convention itself, I mentioned we've got 30 different interest sessions. We've got some incredible dancing planned for the evenings, and that keynote address, just a really great schedule that's going to be happening. And of course, there'll be surprises along the way too.
And I was going to ask you this earlier, with the 30 intercessions, the way y'all set it up, again, because I've never gone to any type of professional development like this prior to the conventions. You choose from them. They give you booklets, and so you kind of just pick and choose the ones you want. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. During each time slot. So obviously Monday morning, first thing, we've got that opening session and the keynote is that first time slot. And then starting, I think it's at 10:30 will be the first block of sessions. And so you can choose, usually it's between 3 different interest sessions and 2 different committee meetings that are all happening simultaneously. And you've got that program in advance, so you can kind of map out which sessions you want to prioritize going to in person, and then the other ones you can listen to afterwards. And then for each time slot, again, that happens throughout the week. On Monday and then all day Tuesday is a variety of different sessions, scattered throughout the day.
Yeah, I was looking last night on TV, and there's a ton of top 10 things to do in Grapevine, Texas on YouTube. And that's just for the city, of course, for the town. And I talked to a couple of people at work who've been out there, and I told them I was going, and they're from Dallas, Fort Worth. So looking forward to going there again as part of Callerlab. And again, my wife and I will probably take a couple of days on either the front end or back end to just kind of hang out in the area. We did that in Arizona, went over to the Grand Canyon for a couple of days afterwards, rented a car and all that business. So big thanks for moving it around every year. Ted, anything on Grapevine, buddy?
It's the 49th. Which he says, dangling the fact that the next one is 50. So I get, these things. I mentioned it again in the video earlier. Some people look at it and they say, "Wow, it's kind of it seems like a lot of money." Well, you've got a lot going on. Prices have gone up, and just so you know, our goal is to just pay the bills. Our goal is not. We don't want to walk away with a profit. We are a non-profit for a reason. All we try to do is make sure we come out pretty even to what's going on. So if we're doing anything with it, it's strictly basically passing everything along as best we can to everybody else and is even. So if you have to plan for something, we prefer you or would like you to join us for any of these events, because these are the times to get this face-to-face time. You really can't, even at conventions, you go to nationals and so forth. We're all running around, right? We're all just running from spot to spot to spot. And it's maybe you get 5 minutes here to talk to somebody, 10 minutes there. If you happen to stay awake at the end of the night, maybe you can have a couple of drinks with somebody, but not everybody's in the same spot. It is just not going to be handed to you gift wrap like it is at a Callerlab convention. Everybody's there. Nobody's going anywhere, and nobody has to go call except for for an hour on one night. You can talk to whoever you want to. So if you can't make 49, man, you do not want to miss 50. 50 is, it's going to be out in Greenville, South Carolina. So I know you'll be there. You can practically walk.
Yes.
So you might as well just go. But if you can't make the 49, you've got a year and a half to start planning to get to 50. And it's going to be a big marker. 50 of anything, right?
No, absolutely.
is huge. So try and hit them. I'm telling you, once you'll know, once you've been there a couple of times, man, it's just nothing like it going back and seeing everybody again. It's just there isn't.
For the listeners at home, the 50th convention is going to be April 13th through the 16th,
Oh,
2025. So put
okay.
those dates on your calendar.
Absolutely.
Oh,
April
sorry.
13th
I should have written
through
that
the
down. I should
16th,
have written it down. My
2025.
bad. This is why I have her around, or she has me, one or the other. I don't know.
That is on the website also.
Oh,
You
yeah.
have it
It is.
blocked out that far so they could look at that also. And speaking of the website, another great segue. He's fantastic at this. Teresa or Ted, Teresa's probably more hands-on on this part. Where and how do I sign up? Where can I sign up to go to the Callerlab Convention?
Great question. So if you go online to callerlab.org/convention, again, that's callerlab.org/convention, you will find all of the information. There's an online registration form for the Grapevine Texas Convention 2024, and you'll find the link to make your hotel reservations, information about what to expect, the tentative schedule of what is happening when is out there. You'll find there's also a pre-registration form for the 50th convention. So if you know for sure you want to be on that mailing list, you can fill out that pre-registration form and we'll send you the form right away when it's ready to go. So check that out, callerlab.org/convention.
Awesome.
No, hey, one other thing, when you're thinking
Yes,
about
sir.
it, if you are hitting the 49th and the 50th, we did it this year. If you sign up at the 49th, you got a chance to win a free convention while
Good.
you're there. So if you plan to bring at least your deposit checkbook with you, or a couple extra bucks that you don't get somebody else to buy you a few drinks and save something, then maybe you can go ahead and leave it there. But if somebody's going to walk away with their convention for the 50th paid for, and they're going to be at the 49th, we'll draw, and I think it's Tuesday night at the banquet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we didn't go in too far into it, and because this is about the convention, the after parties and all that, I've gone to several nationals also in some states. The states are much smaller, obviously, but national conventions and Callerlab conventions are similar, but they're not, because just like you said, in between sessions when you're walking around at a national, there's a lot of people and you see some callers, but there's a lot of dancers, and I love talking to all of them. Callerlab, you're walking around and it's caller, and you're like, oh man, I've seen that dude on YouTube, or whatever. And then you actually get to shake hands, and they're not running to the advanced hall or to the mainstream hall. It's just like, hey, I got 15 minutes before the next session, and you just sit down and talk, and then afterwards, everybody's hanging out at the same hotel. So it's an amazing experience just in and of itself, and then the learning on top of it with the sessions. And now that you're offering it all on recordings also, as a part of the fee, that's tremendous also. Because I know they used to sell them years ago. You could buy them on the CDs and all that, or CDs, DVDs, whatever they were, back when we were in high school, Ted. Not Teresa so much.
Yeah, not Teresa. No, we probably got our 8-track back in the 70s somewhere.
It's like when you said anything 50s big. That was on my birthday 7 years ago, Teresa.
No comment.
6 years ago. That's what happens with age. It was only 6 years ago.
Shoot, that makes me older. Great. Thanks.
Anything else we didn't cover about this Callerlab and Callerlab Convention?
I don't know.
All silent.
No, I mean, it seems like we talk a lot about the convention. It's one of the biggest things that we can do for our membership. If you can't get involved in the committees and you don't have the time to spend, I mean, if you look at my record, after I went to that one in 2001 where I made a presentation, I didn't show up again for another 10 years. I had, an 8-year-old and a 3-year-old at home. So the money and the budget to get to these things just wasn't there. And I only made a point to be at the one for my 25th when they were going to give me a certificate. I didn't want it in the mail. I wanted to be there. So I budgeted and I planned. And then I've been there every time since when my kids finally left and we moved. So I understand, again, it can be weird to get there, but it is something we push to try to get everybody in that one spot at the same location. So much stuff gets done there just from the networking and the discussions around the table and people coming up with ideas, and we should do X, we should do Y. And that's where the seeds get planted. and then these things get out to committees afterwards, or they bubble up to the board and the EC. It really is. I don't want to say it's like Disney or a magical place, but if you're a caller, there's just no other place it's going to happen like it happens at convention. It's really hard to explain until you go.
I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree.
But that's not to say, you know, that obviously when it's not in the cards for folks, that there's still lots of ways to be actively involved in Callerlab.
Yes.
And so even if you're not able to attend convention, you know, I think that it's still important for those folks to have a voice and a seat at the table too. And so we've got a lot of different ways. Again, those committees are working. A lot of the committees have been challenged this year to challenge them to have Zoom meetings, right? Continue that practice that we started during the years when we couldn't meet in person. And we found that that was really helpful to give folks a voice, to help bring our networks together and have those conversations, again, that we normally have via email, but we can do that via Zoom as well. And then, of course, that online discussion that happens prior to the convention when there's resolutions. We try and get our folks engaged, even when they're, you know, not able to join us for convention. We still want to hear those voices and give those folks a seat at the table too. So we're always working to better engage our members, to keep folks informed. And you know, whether or not we get to see you or not, we're glad that y'all are part of our team.
Yeah, this would be a lousy podcast if it was by email, Charlie. It would be lousy.
One other thing, and I just, because we're all wearing the Callerlab blue shirts, you've got other colors. I have a black one and a purple one and a couple others. The black ones are thinner than the others, and I don't care for that. I like the thicker material, but that's my personal opinion. My point in asking that is, so you bring a lot of the stuff with you, the shirts and books and all that to the convention, so you can buy all that. Fantastic.
Dude, there's a collection of Callerlab swag that's available for sale during the convention on site. And obviously we offer some discounts for folks who are buying it on site there. If you are looking to buy a shirt, though, we do offer those available on our website as well, in a variety of colors and shirt weights. So if you like those thicker shirts, I can tell you which number to punch in and it'll give that to you.
This is my oldest one, and it's much thicker. I just like the feel of it. I think the purple one's a little thin also, but I'm kind of picky about that. And one is you don't have the forest green, I think it was. For some reason, y'all don't make those anymore, and I'm highly upset with that.
Is that why you invited us here, to call us out on a lacking color on a shirt? Is this what we've been waiting a half an hour for?
No, I just thought this is the opportunity to tell you how bad I want the forest green shirt.
Evidently. Okay. All right.
And what size? I'll mail you one for Christmas, Charlie. We'll get you taken care of.
By Christmas, I'll be an extra large for sure.
Oh, yeah. Right after Thanksgiving, all means.
Teresa, Ted, I enjoy it. I'm certainly glad we got to sit down and do this. The other thing is, I don't get to talk to y'all very often. On occasion, I will call or text some of you, whether it be questions or just conversation. But I really wanted to get this out about Callerlab. It's meant a lot to me in the years that I've been calling and the last few years that I've been going to the conventions. So I wanted to let everybody know. Any closing thoughts, Teresa?
No, I think that we wrapped it up pretty well. We want to thank you for having us on the podcast, and thanks for all your work as you continue to foster the art of square dance calling and preserve and promote this activity. We appreciate your promotion in general and your support of Callerlab throughout the years now and in the future.
Absolutely. Ted?
No, I'm going to appreciate Teresa's appreciation of you and the fact that you took the time to invite us back and focus on the organization. And I'm glad to hear it's meant as much to somebody else as it has to me. So that's cool. Thanks. We appreciate the time. Thank you.
All right. I will talk to y'all pretty soon. Y'all have a good night. Bye-bye.
Have a good night now.
All right.
Thanks.